everybody. So today we're going to be talking about 6.3, which is the percent proportion. So before we begin, I want to make sure everybody has their math composition notebook out, a writing utensil out, and that you are writing down everything that is on my screen so you have this in your notes. Okay, so before we begin, I want to write down the learning target. So the learning target is I will be able to find percents using the percent proportion. So 6.3, we're talking about the percent proportion. In 6.4, I'm going to give you another way to do this. But for right now, we're sticking with percent proportion. So remember what a proportion is. A proportion is two ratios or fractions with an equal sign in the middle of it. So you can kind of look at it down here. And this is the key idea. So you should be writing down this whole thing. So everybody in your notebook should be writing this down. I would pause the video so that you can write it down. So essentially, this is the setup, okay? You can represent A as P percent of W with a proportion where A is the part. So if you look here, so it's going to go part over whole equals percent over 100. Okay? And that's going to be your setup. So there's some buzzwords for these. The percent, you're always going to have the percent symbol attached to it. The part is typically going to be after the is, and the whole is typically going to be after the of. So those are some keywords. I would write down this to the right just so that you have it. We're going to look at a couple examples though. So with these, you really have to be careful of the language when you go to set up your proportion. So for example, it says 3 out of 4 is 75%. So the percent is typically going to be the easiest one because you just put it over 100 and it's going to have the percent symbol. The confusing part is going to be figuring out what's the part and what's the whole. So think about it, 3 out of 4. So think about a part, think about a whole. Whole is the big thing. A part is just a little portion of it. So 3 out of, keyword of, that means the whole is going to be 4, which then by default, the 3 is the part. So that's how you would set it up, okay? That is our percent proportion. And we talked about this in chapter 5 with the test scores. So say you get 15 out of 20 on the test, that equals this much percent. You set it up in a proportion. So we are going to set it up as a proportion, and then we're going to solve for the missing piece. So we're going to use our algebra skills to do that. So let's just go ahead and jump into an example. So finding a percent. What percent? Okay, so I know right here, I don't know what the percent is, okay? So when I have part over whole equals percent over 100. So I know that I am not going to know what my percent is. So I'm going to have to represent that with an X. Okay, so it's going to be X over 100 because I won't know the percent. Of 15. Remember the key words. Whole is of, part is. So the number after of is 15, which means my whole is 15. So I put it in the denominator. And my part, because the is 12. So I put 12 up there. Okay, so we have our proportion set up. Now, there are a couple different ways you can do it. But the one way I'm going to recommend to do it, since we just got out of the chapter with cross product, is solve using cross product. So you're going to multiply 15 times x together equals 12 times 100. Okay, and that is going to give you 15x equals 1200. And then from there, you're going to solve for P, which is the percent, or we have it written as X. You're going to divide by 15 in order to do this. Divide by 15. And that's going to give you X equals 1200 divided by 15 is going to give you 80. So what does that mean? Well, that means that your percent is 80%. So we're going to write it. We're going to write it. So 80% of 15 is 12. We're going to finish that sentence, filling in what we know. So that is, we found the percent. Okay, we found the percent. Okay, that is example 1. Now let's go down to finding a part. So remember, again, it is part over whole equals percent over 100. So let's read the information and see what we're going to do. So what number is 36% of 50? So this is the only exception. The is in front of the 36, but what is also attached to the 36? The percent symbol, which means for sure that's going to be your percent. So I'm going to write 36 in the percent area. So we have 36 over 100. Okay, so that's good. And remember, that 100 always stays the same in that right denominator. So now we have of 50. Of. Remember, whole typically means of. Okay, so we are going to put that in the denominator, 50. And then we don't know our part. So I'm going to write an x. That's our variable. We need to solve for it. So now we have our proportion set up. Well, now we have to actually solve for x. So again, let's just take the cross product since we know how to do that from the last chapter. So we're going to have 100 times x equals 50 times 36. Okay, that's going to give me 100x equals 50 times 36 should give me 1800. And then remember, we just solve for x. So you're going to divide both sides by 100. And then you'll get x equals 18. So that means that our part is 18. That's our part. So let's fill in the information that we know. So we're going to write, well, we know what number it is now. So we're going to write, 18 is 36% of 50. Okay, 18 is 36% of 50. Okay, that's example 2. Let's go ahead and move down to example 3, finding a whole. Okay, so it says 150% of what number is 24? So again, let's remind ourselves, it's part over whole equals percent over 100. Okay, so let's read our information. Well, 150%, we have the percent symbol there, so I know that is going to be the percent. So I'm going to write 150. Again, the 100 in the bottom never changes. Of what number? Of. There's the of, but do we know what the number is? No. So that means that that is going to be an x. And then is means part is 24. So we write the part right there, 24. Okay, so now we have our proportion set up. Let's do cross product in order to solve for x. So we're going to do 24 times 100 equals 150 times x. Okay, 24 times 100 is going to give me 2400 equals 150x. Again, you're going to solve for x. Divide both sides by 150 because you always want to divide by the number that's attached to the x. And that's going to leave you with x equals 16. Okay, so that means 16 is our whole. So let's write the sentence. It says 150% of what number is 24? Well, now we know what the number is, so let's write our sentence using it. So 150% of 16 is 24. And that is our answer. Notice here that 150%, it made it so the part was bigger than the whole. Now, you probably were thinking, oh, the part's always going to be smaller than the whole. But that's not always the case because here the percent is bigger than 100%, which means that the part is going to be bigger than the whole. So that's why we can't just assume always that the part is going to be the smaller number because it's not always like we see here. Okay, so set up your percent proportion. That's the main thing. Use the part, the whole, percent, and the 100. Okay, make sure you know the key words. For part, it is. For whole, it is of. And for the percent, it's always going to just be that percent symbol. Once you set it up, you're just going to go back to chapter 5 and use your cross product skills in order to solve for x. Okay, that is percent proportion. We will practice that in Big Ideas. Make sure you have all these notes down in your notebook, and thanks for watching.